This is Dolynny TV, and keeping up with the hot streak this weekend, guys, we are discussing some more Edmonton Oilers issues, right? Like, the discussions are kind of what you guys really come for, I've seen. So what we're going to talk about today is the bottom six. Now, a reminder, I've kind of flashed the graphic a couple of times beforehand. What I want you to do is I want you to follow me on Twitter, if you have Twitter, at Dolynny TV. Same as my channel name, just all one word. I want you to follow me there. That's where I post my kind of takes, my opinions, everything throughout Oilers games when they are happening live on TV. So guys, without further ado, let's go talk about the plan for the bottom six under Ken Hitchcock. Now, I'm not saying this is the plan for 5-6 years down the road. I'm talking about this season to get us into a playoff spot. Obviously, well, we've kind of seen quite a few things about the bottom six under Ken Hitchcock that I personally very much so like. Other people don't like it as much. Some people as far going to call out the lines for being insult lines almost. But we'll talk about it as we go through the 6 or 7 points I have to make here. So, last night we saw absolute magic out of our fourth line, right? You think about Spooner, Kara, and Ratty. They were unreal last night. Yes, you know what? Spooner gets the goal, so he looks good. Kara gets a point, so he looks good. Statistically, Ty Ratty looked phenomenal. Absolutely drawing penalties, 4 shots. The guy was unreal for the Oilers. In his return to the lineup after being scratched for quite a few games, all of a sudden he comes in, makes an impact, and you have to think this impact has a two-pronged approach as to why Ratty, Spooner, and Kara were so effective. Ratty and Spooner are guys that are, you know what, they've been top 6 forwards in their career. They don't want to be on the fourth line for the Edmonton Oilers, but they kind of are there just by the position of how the other lines are being effective and working for the Edmonton Oilers. So what do? You have to go out there and you have to make them pay. In terms, you make the other team pay, you make your stat sheet, you make everything look good, and you make the coaching staff pay you some respect. And that's exactly what I believe Ty Ratty did. Ryan Spooner, it's a long time overdue for him to get that goal finally. Of course, you got to go and look at the New York Rangers. What's happening in New York? A guy we traded for Ryan Spooner has 4 points in 8 games. Yeah, could only have 2 points in all those games for us, so save yourselves a little bit here, right? But I mean, Ryan Strome was playing with Milan Lucic, so we'll save ourselves that difference of opinion for a second here. And we'll talk about another complication in the lineup, which will be coming up in the next probably 2 weeks here when Tobias Reeder returns to the lineup, right? So you've got Draisaitl, McDavid, Chiasson, Nuge, Kajula, and of course Puljujarvi. That line's been fantastic. Nuge is bona fide second line center. Beautiful work ethic so far out of him since being put on the 90s line. Then you've got the identity line, Lucic, you've got Brodziak, and you've got Kara on that line. And that leaves, like I said, Spooner, Kara, and Ratty. You've got Patrick Russell sometimes. You've got Valentin Zykov, which actually I should address that. Patrick Russell having been recalled. Well, now you've got Valentin Zykov kind of as a non-roster player due to immigration issues. You got to hold on for a second. What is the real plan? I think Zykov is the guy you insert into the lineup. Russell's the guy you keep in the minors in case of an injury. That's what I'm saying. Just don't hold me to it because I've been wrong before with the Oilers. I would like to see Zykov be the 13th forward. That would be the optimal spot for him, especially with Ratty when you're talking about it, because now Ratty, when Reeder returns, right, this is my next point, Spooner, Kara, Reeder, that's your only real line left, right? If you leave those top 3 lines, or I mean the 1, 2, and 4th line, depending on how you look at the identity line, that leaves 1 spot left. That leaves Ratty's spot, and that only allows Reeder to get onto that line. Now, Reeder, Kara, and Spooner, I think that could be an absolutely phenomenally deadly line for the Edmonton Oilers. I think it could be. Problem being, you're taking out a top 6 for quote-unquote in Ken Hitchcock's plans down the road out for Tobias Reeder, who is a top 9 forward at real most. The Oilers used Reeder up on the top 6, but I'm not a fan. I think Reeder is a third-line player, and with Spooner and Kara, he definitely, very well, can be an effective one. Now, comes down to this. Like I said, where do you slot the identity line? Do you slot it as the third or fourth line? It all comes down to production in my mind. If the identity line is suddenly producing a goal every third or fourth game, you got to say, okay, you know what, that's not bad. We can deal with that, no problem. Thing is, if you are not getting production like the Oilers haven't, they've gotten chance after chance and great work ethic and all that, but that's a fourth line mentality. That's the problem. And if you're going to pay Milan Lucic $6 million to be on the fourth line, oh my God, that is the most Edmonton Oilers thing I have ever heard. Here's the problem. You know what? Given Lucic and given the other two doing all they have to get all those chances, you got to say it's a third line for right now. But like I said, Spooner, Kara, Reeder get going, or Spooner, Kara, Ratty get going. It is going to be mind-numbing to see the race between these two lines, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It could be a very good thing. So the plan for the bottom six all kind of hinges on production in terms of keeping the identity line together and what happens with Spooner, Kara, Ratty, Reeder, right? Depending on what they do together and what they do separately on each other on other lines depends what the bottom six is going to look like for the Edmonton Oilers. Now, that being said, if Reeder returns and I have it my way and Ratty sits, Ratty is very likely to sit quite a few games this year, and especially with Zykov being the 13th forward and Ratty being 14th, 13th, whatever you want to say, Ratty's going to see a lot of bench time, so Zykov, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. They're both, 25, 23. That's not a bad spot for them to be. Journeymen, especially if there's an injury, they get reinserted. And if Ratty has the impact, Zykov has half the impact Ratty had last night, we're going to be gold in the bottom six, right? So the two lines just have to roll and keep getting chances. That's all it takes. If they get chances, it's going to be a productive game for them. That's all I care. That's why I like the identity line so much, is because they have been so effective at getting chances and kind of showing a different look to other teams. If they're showing a different look, we're winning hockey games, and that's exactly what's happening for the Edmonton Oilers at this point. 4-1-1. Like I said earlier, read them and weep. Under Ken Hitchcock, it has been phenomenal. So now the problem is, I've talked about kind of the player personnel things. Now, what it becomes is 13th and 14th forward are only viable. You got to keep this in mind. Only viable if, quote this, if the defensive plan allows there to be a 13th and 14th forward. If the defense gets solved, we trade Talbot and Wideman for somebody else in the top six, and we maybe trade somebody in the top six, like, I don't know, you trade a new, Kajula. That's who I'm looking for. If you trade Kajula, Talbot, and Wideman for a top six left winger, you're all right. There you go. Problem solved. And you're allowed your 13th and 14th forward. But right now, it looks like somebody's going to end up being the odd man out. So as much as I'd like Ratty and Zykov to be 13 and 14 on the depth chart, that might not work out for the Oilers. So the plan there, they have to juggle defense and offense, especially now you got to think about Andre Sekera coming back. What do you do with Garrison? What do you do with Gravel? What do you do with Benning? What do you do with Wideman, right? And you got to figure out the Cam Talbot situation. It's not good to have a player of his quote-unquote quality sitting on the bench and not doing anything. Literally giving your team L's every time he steps in the crease, right? So now, like I said, that all now depends on what the plan with trades are. What are the Oilers going to do in terms of trades? Depends what they do, right? Sekera, if they wait till Sekera gets back early next month, late next month, whenever he slots back in the lineup, do you wait to make a trade then? Do you trade Benning, Wideman, and I don't know, do you load up Benning, Wideman, Kajula, and Talbot for some massive winger? You throw in a first-round pick. Oh, man, you could absolutely change somebody's roster by doing that. But I really don't think I see that being the answer for the Oilers. I think it's going to be a little bit minor of a move. Yes, Talbot and Wideman are my two most likely to be involved. But at this point, what do you think? Like, what do you think the Oilers are going to be able to pull off with GM Peter Chiarelli, with the roster they currently have and the needs they have, while also trying to balance having a full roster, right? A 13th, 14th forward and a 7th defenseman. I really don't see it working out perfectly for the Oilers at this point, but the plan for the bottom six at this point kind of hinges all on making a trade, figuring out your defense, and figuring out your crease. The bottom 6, they just have to go out there and produce. That's kind of the plan. Ken Hitchcock just wants to see his bottom 6 produce so as he doesn't have to make as hard of decisions when it comes to the forwards. Instead, him and Peter Chiarelli can make the plans on defense and goaltending, and we'll be fine. But go back, guys, and check out my reasons why the Oilers don't need to make a trade for a goalie to understand a little bit more what I'm getting at when I talk about trading Cam Talbot. Either which way, guys, I'm Tyson, this is Dolynny TV. I will catch you guys, as always, in the next one. Make sure to hit me up in the comments section down below and follow me on Twitter so as we can interact and I can ask you as many questions as I possibly can in a short amount of time. You like that? That was good? All right. That's how I get out of videos. I'm Tyson, this is Dolynny TV. I am up on out of here.